Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late. What happened? Sometimes there's drama right before the live stream, as if the live stream is the most important thing in the world. It feels like it's going to be recorded. The gist of it is I had a fellow therapist get locked out of her office, and we were generating ways to get into her office. Thinking of climbing in through a window, trying to make my keys work. I find this fascinating in that tonight we're going to talk about radical acceptance. And radical acceptance is this concept that when we struggle, when we struggle with life, and if you think of struggle, it implies my hands are on something, okay, versus letting go. But it's like I'm fighting against reality, fighting against reality. So if we look at the various ways, it seems like there's two ways we fight against reality. One way may be denial. That's probably the most common, we would think. Like if we hear the phrase, someone can't accept reality, we think, oh, reality about their drinking problem, reality about a diagnosis. I can't hear this, please make it go away. Or I don't want to deal with what's going on in the world. I mean, does this all sound familiar? Um, in denial, we might have partial denial. When things are too painful, we don't want to feel the feelings. We don't want to know the truth. We just can't believe that someone did that or something happened like that. And how do we deal with that? How do we face reality? How do we accept reality? The premise is that we will often gain, as if it's the thing we're trying to get. We get more. Oh, hi, Stephen. Shout out to you in Nevada. Um, how do we, if we repress reality, we're going to have more problems. We're going to have more anxiety. We're going to have more tension. We're going to have more difficulty because that's our struggle with just being in touch with reality. There's a story of the sun and the wind. It's Aesop's fable. And they're each boasting as to who is stronger. The wind says, well, I'm pretty powerful. Look what I can do. And the sun can blaze away and scorch the earth. But they decide to have a contest. There's this walker, a traveler walking, obviously far away, and has a coat. And they say, look, the first person who can make this guy take his coat off is more stronger. So the wind starts first, huffing and puffing, blowing and blowing. And the harder he blows, the more this this traveler is going to hold on to his coat. When he's huffed and puffed out, then the sun decides to say, you want me to do it? Give me a chance. And so the sun just brightens the day, causes more and more warmth. And then the traveler willingly takes off his coat. I think the moral of this story is that if you try to pull off defense mechanisms, like ripping emotional clothes off, they get worse. And I was in a class I really enjoyed. I just love getting educated in psychology, and this class was talking about mind, body, and anxiety. And someone says, if there's defenses there, before you try to help a person bring those defenses down, it's important to understand why they're there to begin with. And I think someone made a pun about fences. Fences are similar. Like if there's a fence between property, it may be it might be important to know why they're there. And often it's to keep us safe, to feel protected, to keep our animals inside the fence if we want them protected, rather than going running around. Uh, so as I was preparing this, this morning, I thought of a child who, those of us who've been parents and we have a child and we're taking to the swimming pool, this should be fun. And of course, if they're really, really young, and I remember the feeling, um, I could walk into the pool and my child is clinging on to me for dear life. Like I don't need to even hold on. They're clinging on to me very strong. And like I say, hey, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And it doesn't seem to matter that the more I go into the water, the more they grip and hold on. That's like what anxiety is like. It's so holding on to something or somebody, and we'll talk about things to hold on to that are more useful than others, but holding on so tightly because we're so convinced we're going to drown. It just seems so unnatural to go into the water for some of us. Um, and I think I made the mistake as I was pondering this. Um, I had buried a memory. I was thinking, I won't want to identify them, but I went to a funeral this last weekend of a, well, I think I can say this. I'm not trying to put anybody in a negative light, but I'll just say one of my uncles. And it's partly my story. And I think I have a vague recollection of a pool experience. Um, where he felt like it was cool to dunk someone or to throw them in. And I know that many people believed in doing that. My experience is that makes things worse. It makes you more anxious because you have no sense of control. And now we know it just heightens the limbic system. It makes you kind of go bonkers. And it doesn't bring trust. It really doesn't bring trust. And trust is also an anecdote for anxiety, as we talked last week about an unknown future. Why did I think of this? Because people were talking about memories, and my uncle was great. And I mean, but I had really repressed that. And here I was thinking of my experience with my kids and probably moving too fast, letting them saying it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, and I'm in my world. And I wasn't mean by any chance, but I was just moving too fast. Um, so where is this with how does this fit with anxiety? Um, if the water is reality, the water could represent the pool, the experience of floating in water is reality because it seems so non-grounded. We have no ability to be firm in it. We just have to float, which is a form of surrender. It's a form of letting go of control. Being stiff and trying to control the water doesn't work. It just does not work. Letting go and floating is really, really important when it comes to radical acceptance. And that's what it feels like. It's like, okay, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Um, and that's where I think we are somewhat the cause of our own pain and suffering. We hold on so. I prepared some notes here. Some of the things that came up is okay, well, let's talk about accepting reality. Let's see. Maybe I should just invite you to my screen. That might be nice. Let's see if I can do that here. Share screen. Go to this. It doesn't want to share, so I will accept that. There's a lot of acceptance puns. So we can accept reality or we can fight against it. And not accepting reality, one aspect is denial, which is I just don't want to see it. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to experience it. I think the other thing is fighting against it, this inordinate sense of self that I feel like I can push and control and worry as though that's really going to help anything. And the serenity prayer is pretty wise. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, some of my friends in this current situation we might find ourselves don't want to know all the what they call the bad stuff. They wonder, why am I thinking about it? And I'm not trying to judge anybody here. I'm just describing the situation I find myself in. And it seems like they just have some denial. They just don't want to deal with some of the things externally that are going on in our environment. Others are fighting it, maybe with worry, maybe with catastrophic thinking, an inordinate sense of self. The flip side could be, well, what can we do? There's nothing we can do anyway. The other side is maybe we're trying too hard in the ineffective way. And that's where this serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept. Okay, so like think radical acceptance, things that I cannot change. And then give me the courage, like give me the boldness, the courage to change the things I can. So radical acceptance is more focused on letting go of things that we can't change. And so let's talk about what some of those are. Okay. And I label this things that don't go the way we want them to. Disease, that's a good one. We have an inordinate sense of control, like I'm going to exercise, I'm going to eat right, very good things. But if I have an inordinate sense of control, it makes me think that I really can control the future. And lovely. I just got a message that someone's going to come in and let this person get their keys. You guys are so dear. Oh, hold on. Thank you. Period. Thank you. Period. Have him knock on my door and I will get the keys. Thank you, guys. Joe, we're going to get the keys. Period. If you want to come pick them up and you can drop them off, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'll do it later. It's nice to help make someone's day without really doing much. And this person's so grateful, and it's like, look, if we can do this, we can do this. Where was I? Well, what I'm doing is talk about multitasking. I'm trying to make a PDF. See, this PDF would have been done. But I think you'll be better off if I share a screen, open up something. get to, so I'm just going to accept that this is how this is going tonight. And you can use this time just to take deep breaths. That's what I did. Believe it or not, this person asked for help. I'll be so honest. What happens is, as they were asking for help, I had to go run to the bathroom because I had to do what I needed to do. During that experience, I thought, maybe we can get them home, as if that would help. There's no keys at home. So then the next step was, how can this be solved? And maybe that's an important aspect, is if you can calm down, accept the situation as it is, then you can problem solve. You can calm down. Oh, I know what I did not do. I did not save it as a PDF. Accepting our mistakes, it'll go well that way. So now I can open this up. There. I now just have to save it as it's so much easier to have. You can see my notes. There it is. Yeah, people can be, who would have thought that technology would allow us to do this? The poor person going to come drop off the keys may actually be in the show. Oh, well, okay. Let's see, there you go. So these are my notes. So things that don't go the way we want them to. Locked doors, locking our keys inside the door. All our keys are on the door, so they wouldn't even be able to get. And disease. Test results. We have this inordinate sense of self that we think that we can make sure that we don't get the coronavirus, or we can make sure that we don't get effects from the treatments. Talk about surrender. The word surrender and patient, like the word patient is surrender in Latin. So when you're a patient to a doctor, it means you're surrendering to them. So they hold the knife or the pill or the shot, and you're surrendering to them. Now, if you trust them, works much better. I'm going to open this door here. Better. Family relationships. Oh, wow. We want them to go the way we want them to. We want either the party or the wedding or the talk. I had a talk with a family member today, and I was trying my best to share some ideas, and it went down the regular groove of politics or things going on in the world. And it's not like we see that differently, but this person says, could we just talk about something else? That's right. And I do have a life apart from what's going on in the world. But it seems that if people ask, how am I doing? Well, it's either that or people around me, loved ones that are elderly, that are sick, etc. So I'll work on that. So my point is that I was beginning to feel bad. Well, feeling bad is because I was not radically accepting that this is how this went down. And if I want to be in denial about it, then I'll just not even think I'm doing anything. I'll be out of touch. But if I'm in touch with it, I feel sad that it went that way. So quickly accept where I'm at. And then from there, it's a good starting place to be humble, to understand there's only so much I can do. And then the rest I need to let go of. Job situations. There's a lot of people going to be losing their jobs or have to adjust their job to something they don't like. I started to have to think about that path. And I realized I had the tool to know things look so startling at the beginning, but maybe this is God closing a door to open a window. Just give anything time. Maybe things will turn out better. Government situations, again, election might not have gone the way you wanted. Mandates might not have gone the way you wanted. Um, just on and on and on and on. But if we radically accept that this is how it's going to be, or this is how it is now, things could change in a minute, or they cannot. Maybe things will go back to what we consider a better situation. But see, the question is, how do we know what's better? And we'll get into what I think is the solution. But a hint of that is, we talked about it last week, is that the solution is, in my experience, trusting in a power greater than ourselves, to be able to hold on to God in that situation. Traffic, that one we may accept more. We accept that we can't. I was stuck in hours of traffic coming back. And when coming back from a funeral, and so I'm sitting there, and my bottom's hurting, my back's hurting. Oftentimes I can have urinary urgency, stuck in Seattle. What I have found is, if I accept that this is where I'm at right now, it's okay. It's okay that it's a 18-mile backup. It's okay that there is apparently no reason for it, in my opinion, because there's no car accident, no nothing. It's just a lot of people. I will do much better than if I get hot and bothered about it. Traffic can teach me a lot. Maybe God wants me to experience this traffic, and I have been so desperate, I thought I'm going to have an accident right in the car. Radical acceptance would say, well, if that is, it is, and I'll just find a way to clean up. That's how what happens is, when we nervousness, we just have to relax. Well, we can relax by acceptance. Weather is interesting. Driving in slippery ice is letting go. Snow, something that's too hot, something that's too cold. Accepting. Now I'm getting neck pains here. I will tell you, this works really, really, really well. What radical acceptance is not going to do is make you never have anxiety. No, what it'll do is it will give you the tool, the understanding that when you're in that situation, you'll be able to accept reality as it is. Yeah. And make meaning out of it. I think I'll go a little bit faster here, because I think you get the idea. Court results, court test results, medical or scholastic. You do the best you can do to study, or you try to get into a college or whatever. Court situations, legal issues. That, if you have a negative attitude, well, of course it's injustice, or you never really win. Parents fighting over custody. No, it has to do with surrender. Economy, there's a great one. You can't really control the economy. Our lives could change, not to scare us. I mean, this is supposed to be a peaceful streaming experience. But if somehow, I've thought many times, well, what if we end up with a different form of an economy, like socialism, and everything's supposed to be distributed equally, which we know from history that never really happens. So if I ponder this for an hour, do you think I'm happy? No. Has any communism and socialism actually happened in my life with me personally? Maybe a smidge, maybe in socialized medicine. But the reality is it's not really there yet. So why am I hot and bothered or frightened about this? Well, because the thinking is if I worry about it, then I'll be more prepared. But maybe I pass away before all this happens, or maybe some thought about it to not be attached to material possessions. Um, we could go on and on about this. Emotion. This is almost a category of itself because this is what we're trying to help relieve. But if I accept the panic attack, accept the depression, accept the painful feelings of grief for the loss of something, the loss of the job you used to do, or the way the world is, or you have emotions of sadness seeing people mistreat each other, etc. You're better off than if you fight them. Much, much better off. Embrace the situation. How do we use radical acceptance to embrace? Sorry for the typo there. And as I was pondering this, we use the words like deal with the situation, handle the situation, manage the situation. The reality is handle, hands, manage, manus in Latin means hands. So we need to get it out of our hands and into God's hands. There's a surrendering prayer. God, grant that I meet all this coming day brings to me with spiritual tranquility. Grant that I may fully surrender myself to your holy will. At every hour of this day, reveal your will to me. Bless my dealings with all who surround me. And whatsoever news may reach me in the course of the day, teach me to accept it with a calm soul and the firm conviction that all is subject to your holy will. Direct my thoughts and feelings in all my words and actions. In all unexpected occurrences, do not let me forget that all is subject to your holy will. Help me to be straightforward and wise with all those around me, neither embarrassing nor saddening anyone. Grant me the strength to endure the fatigue of this coming day and all the events that take place during it. Direct my will. Teach me to pray, to believe, to hope, to be patient, to forgive, and to love. That's a prayer I try to pray every day. Living it out by His grace is different, but it's a good prayer. I've had cancer scares or all kinds of scares. And I just say, God, it's in your hands. Taking it out of my hands and putting it in God's hands is really a form of radical surrender. Okay. It just so happens that my dear pastor gave a message, a homily, as we put it. By the way, I just love, he's so good to me. I said, could I have a copy of the homily? He says, sure. He goes and gets it. It's color coded. He's a very excellent speaker. He had a quote from Saint Nicolai Velimirovic. I can never say it. Velimirovich. This is a gentleman who is very educated, I think 3 doctorates, wrote just voluminous amounts of material. He died in America, some thought at the hands of the Soviets who might have murdered him, but he might have died from natural causes. I just happened to be in Pennsylvania in the area where he passed away. We tend to commemorate these places in my faith tradition. And sure enough, I'm there in a hallway and it's like, this is where he passed away. He was dearly loved in Serbia. Yes, Saint Nikolai Velimirovic. Hey, I did it. So I love this. I'm going to read it here, and I'll post this for you. Do not ever succumb to the insane thought that God has abandoned you. God knows exactly how much one can endure, and according to that, measures the sufferings and pains of everyone. Yeah. Do not ever succumb to the insane thought. So it's helpful to realize that's an insane thought that's going to come and try to tempt you, that God has abandoned us. And we may go, well, I'm not thinking God's abandoning me. But the reality is, when we don't get something that feels so not right to us, that disturbs our soul, we start to go, well, where is God now? God knows exactly how much I can endure, exactly what Eric Bolin can endure. And according to that wisdom, he measures the suffering and pain that I'm supposed to go through. And we often get into this thought that I will not be able to endure this. I won't be able to survive, whether we won't have any food, we won't have good health, or I'll die, or I will say the wrong thing. It's just going to be awful to the family member. It's just, we catastrophize. And I don't think we do this alone. I think we have help, help from the dark side, the enemy. So that's why it's very important to hold on to God during these times. To flip over into another type of thinking, and then we'll come back to the radical acceptance. But the Alcoholics Anonymous group, in their book, the AA book, which you've seen me hold it before, so I won't go run and grab it, but they have a quote from in the 4th edition, in the last part of the book, it says, acceptance is the answer. And it's a really good read. Really good read. In fact, we loved it so much that originally the story was called Doctor, Addict, Alcoholic. And so that's in the 3rd edition. So if you're looking for these things, well, turns out that we love this passage, what I call the acceptance speech. In fact, I am going to grab it and just read it. You're going to have to accept that I just lied to you. Acceptance is the answer. And I've had some really bad, difficult moments. I'm working with the client. It just happens that it just goes down the path of I read the part of the book, and that's what we know works. That people just didn't do well saying, go home and read this. So I'll often just bring it out and read it. And this is the acceptance speech. This in the 4th edition would be the bottom of page 416. At last, acceptance proved to be the key to my drinking or any problem. I'll just take out the alcohol just for fun here. At last, acceptance proved to be the key to my problem. After I had been around AA for 7 months, tapering off of the problem, not finding the program working very well, I finally was to say, okay, God, it's true that I, of all people, strange as it may seem, even though I didn't give my permission, really, really have a problem of sorts. And it's all right with me. Now, what am I going to do about it? When I stopped living in the problem and began living in the answer, the problem went away. From that moment on, I have not had a single compulsion to have that problem. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems. That word all is italicized. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept the fact that I had a problem, I could not stay sober or problem free. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I'll read that again, paraphrasing. Unless I can accept this fallen world as it is, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and in my attitudes. Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players." He forgot to mention that I was the chief critic. I was always able to see the flaw in every person, every situation, every government, I'm adding everything. And I was always glad to point it out because I knew you wanted perfection just as I did. AA and acceptance has taught me that there's a bit of good in the worst of us and a bit of bad in the best of us. That we are all children of God and we each have a right to be here. When I complain about me or about you, I am complaining about God's handiwork. I am saying that I know better than God. For years, I was sure the worst thing that could happen to a nice guy like me would be that I would turn out to have this problem. By the way, think about what's the worst thing in the world that can happen to you. Okay, that's what this writer was writing. And for him, it was being an alcoholic. He says, "Today I find it's the best thing that has happened to me. This proves that I don't know what's good for me. And if I don't know what's good for me, then I don't know what's good or bad for you or anyone else. So I'm better off if I don't give advice, don't figure I know what's best, and just accept life on life's terms as it is today, especially my own life as it actually is. Before AA, I judged myself by my intentions, while the world was judging me by my actions." Okay. So what's powerful about all this is you can see where the radical acceptance is just embedded in this 1940s writing, that we accept life on life's terms. When I'm disturbed, I can always point to the fact that I'm somehow not accepting the situation. And when I focus on, I can't accept this, I can't deal with this, I don't want this happening, that's me holding on, struggling, versus saying, I guess everything happens not by accident, that God is directing all this. And if God's directing all this, then what? I guess I should hop on board and not try to, I'm not saying hop on board to something that looks bad or evil, but what I'm saying is not try to fight the whole world in my own strength. Or the whole government or whatever, or the whole financial situation or my own disease. The more we surrender, the more peace we're going to have. I'm convinced of that. So I would many times read this, and I'm practically in tears with my client going, well, that's good writing. But little did they realize I was comforting my own soul with this. I would encourage you to read some of this for yourself on page 418. It talks about having a magnifying mind, that whatever he focused on got bigger. And that's almost for another topic, but I found that really interesting. And I think of this, am I disturbed? Sure I am. And I'm finding some person, place, thing, or situation is not what I want it to be. So if I die to myself, there's a certain aspect of, if I'm dying, I don't want anything. I only want God's will. Then I'm going to get some peace. But if I start to want something, I wanted the things the way I wanted them, and then I pray and think, well, maybe things weren't that good 10 years ago. I'm not talking about evil getting more evil, but I'm talking about how things are distributed in this world, or things happening. Maybe this is exactly what we need to be better, to be healthier, to connect more, to help me look at my own selfishness, to help me be less just judgmental. Without some kind of problem, I'm not going to grow. Um, so I believe in journaling. That was my old son's math book. But thankfully, my son, oh my gosh, here's another prayer card I might read. It's just things are hopping out. But I'm going to read this. I wrote this sometime back, and then I decided to rewrite it in my nicer journal. I believe in writing to yourself, so that then it's grounding. You kind of, so this is what I wrote. When I am surrendered to God, I don't struggle, because I am not trying to force something. And I have something towards my wife, something towards the world, etc. When I'm surrendered to God, I have no muscle tension, because I am not carrying anything. Think of the Bible verse that it says, when I am heavy laden, burdened, come to me and I will give you rest. When I am surrendered to God, I do not judge, criticize, or condemn, because God alone is judge. And only he sees things realistically. Yeah, I think I'm so realistic, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I don't have a clue of what's good. It could very well be he's trying to give me, we'll call this the bowl of medicine. And I say, no. And I'm going to protest that. This is bad, bad, bad. And maybe God's saying, no, actually, I want you to drink from this cup of suffering. Really? I never thought it would be like this. But then reading, praying, and you realize, wait a minute, it's all through the scripture. We're going to suffer. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but he will deliver you out of them all. Even Christian writers talk about it, that there isn't really a medicine out there that tastes good. It's supposed to be bitter. It's supposed to hurt a little bit. It's supposed to be, now there is comfort there too. They balance it out. But I mean, we need to comfort each other. We need, during these difficult times, I'm not saying let's rub salt in the wounds, but we need to comfort with words of encouragement that we're going to be okay. I've connected with some friends that like, no, we can do this by God's grace. When I am surrendered, I don't worry about the future, because it is in God's hands and not mine. When I'm surrendered, I experience God's power, because he gives grace to the humble, and his power is perfected in weakness. When I am surrendered, I am closer to God, because God is nearer to the contrite and humble heart. When I am surrendered to God, I trust him and remember his works of mercy to me. Yeah, I can get teary-eyed. I remember all the rescues, all the times he's rescued me. And all those times look so awful, but he rescued me many, many times. I can remember the forgiveness of sins, the healings. I mean, I've been miraculously healed many times. It's not always miraculous, but there were some times that it was totally miraculous. I had an ulcer for 6 months as a high school 18-year-old who just gave his life to God. And my parents were very not supportive, to say the least. I'm very controlling and manipulative. And I was drinking a bottle of Mylanta a day, all that stuff. Well, I actually was good tasting at the time. I couldn't have apple juice without it. It was just bizarre. And I became a Christian. And there's a sense I surrendered, because the doctors were talking surgery. I kind of prayed a prayer. I mean, I'd had it. I just said, I'm praying a prayer. God said that I could pray for healing, ask anything in his name. And I just prayed it. And then I went through, I just felt like I was healed. I felt some peace come in. And I just ate normally, went away. It's not that I haven't had some new aches and pains in my gut, but yeah. And I was at the end of myself. Yeah, there was very little I can control. Um, in fact, I guess I can share this. It's my story. Well, let him be mad. My parents changed so much in the other direction that I think that I can share this. My dad was so controlling. Like, he was the type who would almost call the police to have me dragged out of church. I wanted to go to church. He felt it was a cult. And I said, no, I'm going to church. And I would sneak out to go to church with friends. I was in a Christian singing group. Now, thankfully, he didn't get that far, but he was physically violent, and so I was fearful of him. But I grew out of that. And I mean, the more I prayed and surrendered to God, I mean, this man became a Christian later in life. He surrendered to God. We had probably one of the best relationships later. He would just call me 3 to 4 times a week to tell me he loves me. And he would pray the Lord's Prayer while he's kind of passing away. And he said, wow, he was so involved in politics. He said, politics isn't where it's at. It's like, that's right, Dad. He says, yeah, you won't get happiness in following all that. That's right, Dad. Right before he passed away, he says, there's some people I'll never forgive. And it's like, oh no, clunk. I feel like I had to let him know, if you're a Christian, you have to forgive. So I got some courage to just share that. And he says, okay. So he started working on things. It was kind of an amazing thing. And I was really frightened of, what is his passing away going to be like? It was probably the most peaceful time, one of the more peaceful times in my life. I had mentioned so my dad did pass away, but my mom was in the hospital recently. Similar story in that you just have to surrender a lot and accept a lot. And a good day is being able to do just the most basic, simple things, lowering your expectations. When I'm perfectionistic, I'm not surrendered. If I try to be too good or perfect at something or not cause any pain, or how do I get my mom the best possible treatment on the face of the earth, and making sure the doctors do what I want them to do. And, no, the more I surrendered and prayed and said, God, I'm just putting this in your hands, the better it went. So the healings, the provision, talk a little bit about a sidetrack. When I'm surrendered to God, I trust him, remember his works of mercy to me, the rescues, the forgiveness of sins, the healings, the provision. Oh my gosh, so many times we had no money. It's like, how are we going to survive? The gifts and the miracles, so many gifts, like bizarre stuff. You just can't imagine. Like, I guess we get into the details, but I guess, as you might know, I in my faith tradition, we have icons. So this is one of the oldest icons. So we'll be praying about something, and we find a Byzantine icon, a Christian icon, at like a thrift store. Like, are you kidding? And my godson Michael, who I would say this to his face, I dearly love and hope someday that he'll find a deeper relationship with God. Well, when I met his father the very first time, you meet the in-laws. Mike pulls out, an icon, a little necklace of Michael, and it's like, well, that's kind of cool. That was unsolicited from me. A week before the wedding, we are need to buy some things at a gift store, or thrift store rather. We're buying shoes. Why buy good shoes when you can just go to the thrift store and buy black shoes that are uncomfortable, but they look nice with the suit? And then a serving spoon. As we're in there, I find 4 icons, 2 of St. Michael. And we're talking the ones that would cost $25, like at a, it's like, and then 2 of something like this, Mary and Christ. Like, are you kidding me? Like, there is no way these things aren't just there. So, but there's bigger things that just can't be explained. So I really believe that while we may have some trepidation and fear, that's because we're holding on. If we let go and trust God for the next 24 hours, whether it's what's going to happen in the world, in our own communities, our own livelihood, and we do radical acceptance, like, God, okay, here it is. I'll just do whatever you want me to do. When I'm surrendered to God to keep my faith strong, I shall read the word of God. Oh, this is my to-do item. To keep my faith strong, I shall read the word of God, the Bible, the gospel. Faith comes by hearing the word of God. I shall try to practice keeping the word of God in my heart and living the word of God in my action. Just wanting to make sure that I'm ready for this key to unlock the door. Another book, Let Go by Fenelon. Yeah, that looks better. I can hide myself. So this I found at a used books, or no, I did find this at a used bookstore. Fenelon is more a Western saint, but he was in the 1600s. There's this prayer, which is very surrendering, and I'll post it in the description area or post a PDF of these because I hand them out to people. But it goes something like this. God, oh, well, actually, I was going down another direction, which is a 3rd step prayer in the 12-step. I'm going to share that first. Here's another prayer. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them would bear witness to those of thy serve. Thy will, thy strength, and their way of life. May I do thy will always. I think that is it. Fenelon had this prayer. It goes something like, God, I do not know what to ask of thee. Thou alone know what are my true needs. You love me more than I myself know how to love. Help me to see my real needs which are concealed from me. I do not dare ask either for a cross or for consolation. I only wait on thee. Strike me down and raise me up. I worship you in your unsearchable ways. Pray thou thyself in me. I just got a little message that the person got the keys. So I find this book and I'm going to share just a little bit of it. It's online. You can get it for $6, it appears. Now, these were letters that were written back in the 1600s to his children. In fact, I'll read this because this will tell you something. Although descended from a long line of French nobility, Francois Fenelon devoted his life to Christ and the Church. In 1689, he was appointed as the tutor of the 7-year-old Duke of Burgundy, who was second in line for the French throne. When Fenelon began his tutorship, the Duke was a spoiled, mean child. Years later, I should just be quiet. I know a few spoiled, mean children, including myself at times. Um, when Fenelon began his tutorship, the Duke was a spoiled, mean child. Years later, when Fenelon left him, he was a very governable young man who thoroughly understood the responsibility of his future duties. Sorry, my brain went down this path of here you have the son of a king. Do you think he was a mean, spoiled child? Yes. Do you think he's going to be a ruler someday? Yes. So Fenelon had such, by use of God, an effect on him. Okay. Later, Fenelon became the spiritual advisor of a small, committed number of men and women in the court of Louis XIV, including the king himself. In fact, under Fenelon's wise spiritual direction, Louis XIV sought to live a life of true spirituality in the midst of a court that was otherwise shamelessly immoral. And if you've seen any movies about what was going on right before the, our getting our independence, I think of Benjamin Franklin going over there, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's creepy, the immorality. During this period, Fenelon, who also became a friend and spiritual advisor to Madame Guyon, in the course of his spiritual pastoring, Fenelon wrote letters to numerous persons containing profound spiritual wisdom. After his death, his spiritual letters were collected into book form and were published under the name Let Go. Okay. I've been enjoying this. The true source of peace, okay, see how short it is the surrender of the will. Remain in peace. The fervor of devotion does not depend upon yourself. All that lies in your power is the direction of your will. Give that up to God without reservation. The important question is not how much you enjoy religion, but whether you desire whatever God wills. Humbly confess your faults. Be detached from the world and abandoned to God. Be detached from the world and abandoned to God. Love him more than yourself and his glory more than your life. The least you can do is to desire and ask for such a love. God will then love you and put his peace in your heart. Oh, that was helpful. I love this. I just love this. This is great. How to obtain peace. Letter 5. Cultivate peace. Be deaf to your too prolific imagination. Be deaf to your too prolific imagination. And we, early Christian, we should talk about assaultive thoughts, but assaultive thoughts come to us instead of just saying, in DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, that, we say that these are thoughts from the enemy and we're to ignore them. So that's where this be deaf to them. Its great activity not only injures the health of your body, but it introduces dryness into your soul. You consume yourself for no purpose. Peace and inner sweetness are destroyed by your restlessness. When you are in the midst of such tumult caused by your incessant hurry of thought, do you think that God can speak in those soft and tender tones that melt the soul? Be quiet, and he will soon be heard. Indulge but a single scruple, to be scrupulously obedient. You ask for consolation, yet you do not perceive that you have been led to the brink of the fountain and refuse to drink. Peace and consolation are only to be found in simple obedience, being faithful and obeying without reference to your scruples, and you will soon find that the rivers of living water will flow according to the promise. You will receive according to the measure of your faith. Much if you believe much, nothing if you believe nothing, and continue to give ear to your empty imaginations. You dishonor true love by the supposition that it is anxious about such trifles as though that continuously occupy your attention. Love goes straight to God in pure simplicity. In contrast, Satan is transformed into an angel of light. He assumes the beautiful form of the scrupulous love and a tender conscience. However, you should know from experience the trouble and danger into which he will lead you by Pharisaic scruples. Everything depends upon your faithfulness in repelling his first advances. If you become unquestioning and simple in your desires, I think you will be more pleasing to God than if you have suffered 100 martyrdoms. Turn all your anxieties toward your delay in offering a sacrifice so right in the sight of God. Can true love hesitate when it is required to please its well-beloved? So that was a lot there. But this person, when I read it, had to do with scrupulousness. And I think I struggle with that, trying to do everything perfectly and right and being nitpicky, and it ends up squeezing out love. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully this has brought some peace to your soul. You're welcome to subscribe or click the notification bell. I feel like I just as soon not say all that. But what it does do is it does actually work pretty well. If you like this video, go ahead and press the like. But what it does do is then people don't have to ask, hey, when are you doing another one? I'm aiming for every Monday. So I wish you well. Feel free to leave comments in the comment section. I'll also post where you can find these books and resources. So you take care and have a great evening.